Okay, so today's September 13th, and we're looking at environmental unit in Science 10 and questions about environmental concerns on environmental science 12. So today, the combined class, what we're going to be looking at is considering what we talk about. What is my environment? And what are our current environmental concerns? So there's only two things we're going to look at. This is going to be a general thing. Like yesterday we looked at, Tuesday we looked at what is energy. Because energy is the concept for everything in the world, for everything that's living. So in our planet here, we have to be concerned about our environment. So we want to know what that is, and we're going to be looking at an article on the line, which I'll give to you, about what are current environmental concerns. I imagine some of you already know. What are the things that some people are concerned about right now? If you heard about problems in the environment. If you watch the news or listen to news, what is the things that people talk about when they talk about the environment? Anybody? What in the ocean? Plastic in the ocean, that's right. Plastic, there's a lot of pollution. You know that a lot of the stuff that we buy, like our coffees and a lot of our drinks are made in plastic bottles, the water, right? And what happens? We just throw it in the garbage. Sometimes those things get recycled. That's what people are trying to do, recycle plastic so we don't have to throw them in the ocean. What happens in the ocean, they float, and then they all collect. There's actual place in the middle of the Pacific where it's a big garbage dump to all the plastics there. And that causes problems for all of the sea life that's there. We have to look at, of course, what is an environment? What is the word? What does it mean? Well, environment means everything around us, right? Everything around us that affects us. Now, most of us are just concerned now about our little lives right here in Bathurst. So today, the thing will affect most of you is the weather. If it was raining, then you would change the way you would dress. If it's warm like it is today, we open the door, let some of the fresh air come in, try to cool it off. The environment affects the way we live, the way we dress, the way we react to it. When we talk about environments, we look at everything that surrounds us. So we can look at what surrounds us right in this classroom, and what surrounds us in the city, and what surrounds us in this country, and what surrounds us in this planet. Because everything in that, small to big, affects the way we live. So it could be a little drop of pond water. If you've seen those little puddles, not so much on the street, but if you're in the bush or go on the trail, if you look closely, there could be all kinds of bugs in there, little algae. So there are living ecosystems, little organisms in those places. Then we go to a larger environment. A larger thing could be a desert. What lives in the desert, or what lives in the mountains? What lives in the prairies? Those are environments. They're different types of environment. See. So we got a small thing like a flower pot. We could talk about a tree, city block, a campground, a river, a country. It all depends on how we look at things. All depends on your perspective, the way you look at things. Your attitude. Now, some people, and we heard this a lot from First Nation people, they have a kinship with Mother Nature. I call it Mother Nature. They may have another name for it, but they're more akin to the world that surrounds them, that provides them with a lot of the resources, the forests, the rivers, the streams. And they're a lot more concerned about that than a lot of non-Aboriginal people. So they are very concerned about, that's their attitude. And it may be different from a person living in New York City who only worries about making money. If he lives in a big brick building and he goes to an office every day, he may not be concerned about what happens in the forest. His attitude is different, the way we look at things. So, this is a story I tell you. Have anybody heard about this? I don't know if another teacher told you. It's a Middle Eastern story. I think I got it in the next page. It's written almost like in a poem form. Yeah, there it is. 6 Men of Indostan. Now, I'm not going to let you have to read it, but I included it there. And if you want to, when you look at your pickup box, you can see a copy of it. But I'll just summarize it. There were 6 blind men, and they wanted to know about an elephant, because blind men can't see. So they thought they would go and to an area where there were elephants and satisfy their curiosity. So the first man that came up, he was walking towards the elephant. He stumbled, and when he fell against the side of the elephant. And when he hit it, he said, "Oh my God, that's a wall." He couldn't see it. When he hit that big side of the elephant, he said, "Well, that's a wall." The next guy was around the front, and he grabbed the tusk, and he rubbed his hand up and down, and he said, "Geez, that feels like a spear. It's ivory, it's smooth, sharp." He said, "That's a spear." Another guy was able to reach up and touch the ear. And you know, you've seen an elephant's ear. You can see it, but he couldn't. To him, it felt like a fan. Another man went over and he touched the legs. And he said, "Well, that feels like a tree. This is a tree." And the guy in the back grabbed the elephant's tail, and he said, "Ah, that's a rope." Felt like a rope. So every one of those guys was actually a little bit wrong. They thought they were touching a wall, they were touching a tree, they were touching a snake, you know, the tusk, the big nose. When he touched his hand along the nose, he thought he was touching a snake. So those 6 men all thought they were touching different things. They all touched the same thing, but why would they think it was different? Because they had a different perspective, depending on how they reacted to it. It's all the same animal, but they had a different point of view. And that's what happens sometimes in the way we look at the environment. It's how our attitude to it, how we see it. So how will we describe our environment here? Well, it depends on how you look and how you want to look at it. For some people, it may be important to think about, well, what's in Bathurst for me for a skate park? Are there any skate parks? Because I love skateboarding. If I went to Moncton, maybe Moncton's a better place to be, because my world right now, I just love skateboarding, and they got a better skateboard park. Another person may be more interested in kayaking, you know, and they say, well, Bathurst is a good place to kayak. It's got a nice harbor, a nice bay. I can launch my kayak up in the bay, and I can have a nice afternoon out there. Another person may say, what I'm looking for in life is nice beaches. Because a lot of people, they go traveling, they look for a nice beach. I'm like, well, Bathurst has got a great beach. Beautiful, U-Haul, sand. It's just like down in Shediac. So, you know, Bathurst has a lot to offer. For different people, the environment is important to them, that particular part of the environment. Now, the person who likes the beach, if all of a sudden there were people down there throwing their beer bottles and leaving their garbage there all the time, they would be upset, because that would be something that they would enjoy, but other people didn't respect it. And other people wouldn't care. I don't ever go to the beach. I burn easy. I'd rather stay inside maybe and play video games or something, or maybe I like to go kayaking or something different. So their viewpoint would be different than the person on the beach. So it's how you want to look at things. So if I were to look at this center here, how would I describe it? Well, it depends where you are, right? Physically, if I was standing outside on the street there, over across where the bootlegger is, looking at the building, you say, oh, the transition center is a place that's right next to the TD bank. It's got glass doors, 2 doors. You go in there. There's computer desk around the inside. Everybody has a station. So they're describing it physically. That's their viewpoint, right? That's one way of describing it. Another person could say, oh, the transition center is a place where I can learn individually. I can work at my own station. It's not like a BHS. They have classrooms. All the students sit in their classes either in a rows, or they sit around in a U shape, whatever the teacher wants. It's like 30 or 40, and they all have to listen to the one teacher. And then they move to another classroom for another course, and then they move to the gym. But a transition center, we always stay in one place. So that's one way of describing it, as being different. That's how the environment would look like if you were looking at it from the style of learning. It's all the same place, but there's a physical description, there's a way of looking at it, and then the relationship with BHS. Well, how are we related to BHS? This is a part of Bathurst High School. It's a transition center. It's for people who perhaps don't really have success in that environment up there. They're much more suited to individual work. For other people, because maybe they need just a few courses. Maybe for some other people that come here is because they're older, they've been out of school for a while, and they want to come back and pick up courses. And there are some people, perhaps because of their behavior, which maybe not be acceptable up there, they have to come up here, down here, and maybe this environment, independence, is a lot more suited to their personality, so they can work better here. So everybody has a different reason. So how it compares to other learning center. Another way to say, well, how does this one compare with the one in Hamilton or the one in Dalhousie? Well, I've seen the one up in Hamilton. It's a lot bigger. Physically, it's nicer. I hate to admit it, but it is. It's newer. However, we go through more students here. We have more success at this one here than they do. We have much more success, and it's something to be proud of here. This is one of the best learning centers in the province. So that's how you could describe this one. Okay? It's a different viewpoint. Now, the world that we have is made up of all different smaller environments. There's our Earth. So if you look at that from outer space, what could you think of as one type of environment we're looking at right there? There's two I can see right away. Okay? Oceans and land. So we know that one of the big environments there is oceans. There's all kinds of life. That's salt water, and only certain type of animals and fish can live in there because they only suited to salt water. We don't live in there. We can travel on it, but we can't survive there. We died because we need fresh water. We can't drink salt water. So it has an environment that's unique. Then if we look at the earth or the land, we can say, can we break that up? Well, what kind of different types would there be on the land? Well, I mentioned one already. Deserts. What other kind of things you have there? What would be another major type of environment? Forests. And we even look at forests, and we can have two types of forests, or three types. The forest we have in Canada, if you look around here, we have a lot of evergreen trees, the ones that we call Christmas trees. And we also have hardwoods, like maples, the ones that at least fall. Those are called boreal forests. That's a name that we'll go over more in environmental science. But if you went down to South America, into the Amazon, or in Africa, the jungles, they have different tree life. They have trees that grow a lot higher, a lot thicker, and on the bottom, there's hardly no brush at all because there's no sunlight. So we got forest, we have oceans, we have deserts. What other thing we could have? So I can write those up here. Oceans, we have forest, we have deserts. Can you think of anything else where people, or a different type of environment, not necessarily people live, Yeah, down into the polar regions. We have those areas of ice, or we can call it Arctic areas, where they have mostly ice. There is a difference, right, between the Arctic and Antarctic. The Arctic is an area where it is ice covered, but it's an ocean. But the Antarctic is ice covering land. Okay? It's all land there. We also have, what kind of country would you call it if you've seen pictures when you're out and say Manitoba, Saskatchewan? Prairies, right? That's another type of environment. Prairies. And there's another one that right in between land and oceans. Very wet areas, wetlands, right? Swamps, that's a good one. Swamps and wetlands. So those are different types of environments, and there's a few more. But the point is that each one of these is different. They have different characteristics. And we would have different concerns with them. Now, Savannah mentioned plastic. Well, we're very concerned so much of plastic in the oceans, because that's where it seems to have the most negative effect for it. in forests, what would be a concern that we would have for forests? Okay? Right. Too much of that clear cutting is destroying the habitat. All these animals are losing places to live and are running out in the highways and getting killed. We're losing places for our wildlife. The species are dying because they got no place to live. Down the Amazon, they're cutting down the jungle so they can raise cattle for McDonald's burgers. Because everybody likes hamburgers, but they don't care about the trees. But the trees are so important because they are the plants that eat up the carbon dioxide. We breathe out, that's poison. We breathe in oxygen. The plants, the trees, take the carbon dioxide and put out oxygen. So the more trees we kill, the less oxygen that we have there being made. So it's always good to plant a tree. I have 3 or 4 trees I plant in my yard. I have a big lawn, grass, so I like to keep that oxygen going. Oxygen is good. In Las Vegas, they know that too. If any of you know people who went to Las Vegas, it's in the desert, but all those casinos, they have oxygen pumped through all the time because they want people awake, energetic, go and gamble. If there's no oxygen, you're kind of, that's why we open the door here, because it gets stuffy. If it's stuffy, you feel lethargic, but people want them to gamble, so they pump in oxygen, keep them going. So the world is made up of a lot smaller environments within it. So we listed a few here. So those are basically types, and we'll be focusing a little bit about these when we get into Science 10, about the different types of controls in them. And in Science 12, Environmental 12, we're going to look more at how to protect our environment for some of the current dangers now. What can we do? What are some of the big dangers, and what should we be doing as a single person, individual, and what we should be doing as a community? Because the politicians have to be convinced that they can't keep polluting the world. You should be concerned because it's your generation that's going to be living it to my age. I really, really appreciate what your generation is doing now because your generation is recycling. When I was a young person, we used to throw our pop bottles, our garbage in the ditch. No one ever told us that was, going to be bad. But there was half the people back then too. When I was in school, there were 16 million people in Canada. Now there's 35. It's over doubled just in my lifetime. And the population is growing so fast. So the more garbage out there, it's going to affect you. Okay. So what we're going to give you here, you'll see that on the assignment page, I'm going to ask you to go to the link right at the bottom of the page. You're going to be able to type this in, or in some of the cases you might be able just to tap on it. I don't know whether it works on your Dropbox or not. But you'll see here the name of the article is 10 Current Environmental Issues. These are the top 10 or important things that are concerning everybody in the world. And what I want you to do is to provide some examples or reasons why they are important, why we should be important, why we should be concerned about them, why are they an issue. Right now, I can offer you one, and you can read more about it, is going to be global warming or climate change. Some of you already know that we're losing a lot of the ice up in the Arctic. The polar bears are having a hard time finding a place to go and reproduce. They used to go out into the ice. Now the ice is so thin and breaking, some of them are actually floating away on the little icebergs, and they're never getting back to land. And the ice, because it's getting warmer there, polar bears are migrating further south. When I was in Churchill, Manitoba, you could walk down the street. You had to be careful because there'd be polar bears coming into town. And polar bears are very dangerous. They're one of the few animals that hunt men. Polar bears now are coming further south. Now, they haven't come down to Toronto yet, or Montreal, but given time, as, the climate changes, they move. They move further and further south for their food and everything. So you're going to write this article, you're going to write the title, either Science 10 or you can put both. Put today's date and your name, and you're just going to summarize 10 concerns or issues. And it should be an article like this, if I can bring it up. It's called Current Environmental Issues, and then there's a few pages there that you can read, and I'm sure you're going to see some important concerns. Unfortunately, there is some pop-ups that come there, but I'm sure you won't mind those. Try not to focus on those and just focus on the text. Okay? Any questions? All right, I'm trying to get the downloader converter working again, so I'll be able to convert your video lesson onto it. But if you give me a little bit of time, it's not there yet, I'll try and get it in before the end of the day here. Okay? All right, thanks. 20 minutes.